category section. Each week is when we get to talk about the tokens we drew the week before, which give us our categories. We pick our topics based on those categories. Well, last week, things got mixed up a little bit.
A lot of bit.
Our guest, Mr. Jason Edmiston, said, hey, I'm going to turn this thing on its head.
I want to make some rules.
Yeah, and when he says that, you kind of just listen.
Yeah.
And so we added
being polite because he's a guest.
Right. We added a random category into the mix, and Luke got that category. So I think it's only fitting for you to kick us off. What category did you get, Luke?
I got science.
Yeah, you did.
Master
Not
of
a bad
science.
week to get science.
Well, listen. Okay. Yeah, we can talk about space. I mean, space is a thing, right? So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk about a podcast that I have gotten into recently that is all based on sound. It's called 20,000 Hertz. It is...
you kind of took a pivot there.
No, listen. I'll get there. Just stay with me. Stay with me. We'll get there. Stay with me. We'll get there.
Okay.
The host, Dallas Taylor, he is a sound designer. He's been working in the industry for a long time, and it's really awesome. The show is they take these famous sound things. So like their first episode was this voice of Siri. They've had ones on the Wilhelm scream, the like Muzak, like elevator music. They've had there was a photographer that Michelle Obama tweeted his phone number out about, I don't know, a year ago. And just the story of how that like changed kind of his life now. Like he gets random voicemails and text messages and stuff and things, all these things that deal with things in sound, like the frequency of these notes that you like don't audibly notice that you hear, but you hear, and like it's all kinds of crazy scientific takes on sound, and it's super interesting. The episodes are like 25 minutes, maybe 30 minutes at the most. Super interesting. They're produced really well. He's a sound designer, so they sound incredible. It's a really, really fun listen. But he works for a company called DeFacto Sound, and DeFacto Sound is a company that does music and sound for all kinds of brands and movies and advertising and video games and stuff like that. So they've done Skyrim, they did Dishonored, they did all kinds of different movie stuff, a lot of TV stuff with National Geographic. And so I was looking, I kind of went down the rabbit hole from the podcast to DeFacto and looking at some of the stuff they did. And they've done some stuff for National Geographic that is really, it's just really good. It's like these short films, and one is called Before Mars. And it's the story of these two girls that they're like sisters, and they get into like ham radio, and it's the opening shot is this girl in a spaceship on her way, like taking off somewhere, and then it's a flashback into the story of these sisters and kind of how they get to the first scene you see, and it was timely because as we know this week, the what's it called? The Heavy Falcon?
The Falcon Heavy.
Falcon Heavy. Yeah. Was launched with a Tesla and a spaceman to kind of prove this theory that Elon Musk has of making space travel accessible to the everyman. Now, when we say every man, you still need a fair bit of money to be part of this everyman space travel. But it's not just, government controlled and not you don't have to be an astronaut and be trained scientifically. At least that's the down the road idea of how we get to space travel as a normal thing for everyday man. But it was cool how, like, getting into this podcast, listening and learning a lot about sound design and just kind of what things that we hear and how, especially like the episode about the Wilhelm scream. I mean, do you guys both know what the Wilhelm scream is? Mm-hmm. So it's like this famous sound bite that has been used in movies for the past 65 years.
And once you recognize it, is incredibly grating.
Yeah. And you hear it everywhere. I mean, everybody uses it. But just the idea that there are so many things like that we hear all the time that we don't realize we're rehearing the same things. So just going down that rabbit hole to De Facto Sound, seeing all the incredible stuff that they do, watching this short for National Geographic on Mars, and then into this kind of proof of concept that, we might be in space someday. And this is like hot off the heels of me getting into Star Trek. And it's like crazy. Just, I want to be in space someday. I think that'd be amazing. Like, I never thought like I would ever do that, but if there's an option for me to like go to space, I'm down. Like,
yeah, for sure.
I want to do it.
I'm not there yet.
I don't like heights.
I want to be there.
Here's the thing. I'm not a heights guy. So that I feel like that's way high up. Space is way high up.
Eventually you get so high that the height it can't kill you anymore.
Right. No, yeah, because you just...
Gravity goes away.
Then it's an expanse
It's
thing.
just air. There's no air, and that kills you.
It's too wide.
Yeah.
It's too high, like, horizontally.
Right. So yeah, I mean, so Master of Science, I don't think I really mastered anything. If you're into sound design and you're into learning more about the stuff we hear, then 20,000 Hertz is incredible. It's a really good podcast, and it's produced incredibly well. And then
awesome.
Space Flight. I mean, are you guys down with space? I want to hear from our community. Tell me if you're going to go to space with me someday. And yeah, let's all be Martians. Okay. Andrew, you take it.
All right, so I got toys and games, and I've got a game that I got a little bit ago. I'm really excited. I've played it. I think I may have mentioned it on the podcast, but I'm not even 100% sure I did that. But it's a game called Bunny Kingdom. Bunny Kingdom. Here it is right there.
I vaguely feel like you've talked about this.
No, not on the podcast. I think you mentioned getting it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
it's an ELO game.
It's a game by ELO.
Yeah.
And we love ELO games, or at least I do. It's a lot of the games that I own are ELO. But specifically, the game designer for this one is Richard Garfield, who is of King of Tokyo,
Garfield.
King of New York.
Oh.
What?
I said creator of Garfield.
Yeah. No, creator of...
No, he's the guy that played Spider-Man.
King of...
Oh,
yep.
yeah.
All of these things are absolutely right. But he also, on top of that, did King of Tokyo and King of New York. As well as other games, but he did that game, and we all love King of Tokyo. Every time we have a thread in Slack that's about games, and every once in a while people ask for recommendations. I think King of Tokyo pops up every single time.
Yeah.
But if you see, it's Bunny Kingdom. It takes place in the medieval times, but the fun twist is they're bunnies.
Okay.
One thing you'll notice about the art right away is it's very stylized, but it's got kind of the hint of realism in terms of the lighting and the layout and everything. Well, the artist who behind the art, the first thing that drew me to this was the art, first of all, as is usually the thing.
Sure.
But the artist's name is Paul Maffeon, but he does a lot of work with Blizzard on World of Warcraft, Hearthstone, some big name games, and he does all the artwork for this game as well. So I'm going to try to give you a quick rundown of what this game is. It's essentially a placement game, a territory ownership game.
Yep.
But the way that the game is laid out, here's the board. try to show you. If you're not watching this on YouTube, this will be a little bit harder to understand.
So it's a grid. It's a bunch of squares, it looks like.
Right. It's a grid, and the grid is set up. It's 10 down and 10 across, so there are 100 squares. The cards, there is a card associated with each territory location.
Okay.
So there's 100 territory location cards, and then there are additional cards on top of that. The whole point of the game is to get carrot points. Essentially, there's golden carrots that you get, which are essentially like victory points. And as you get those points, you move up the score tracker, which you saw on the side of the board. But the way that you do that is you get these territory cards. You put your bunny there, and here are the bunnies. Let me just kind of show you one of the bunnies. You get a whole bag full of bunnies, depending on the character, or depending on the number of players. Here are the bunnies. I'm gonna try to get close enough for it to focus.
Tiny.
It kind of looks like your Safubi bunny that you have.
Yeah, you're right.
It very much looks like that. Yeah. It's gonna be hard for it to focus because it's so tiny. But there you go. They're very little. But the detail is pretty fun on them.
Yeah.
But I don't even know. That's a lot of
Yeah,
little
it's like
bunnies.
30.
Yeah.
And it's
They
continually growing
multiply
as well.
like rabbits. So you get your
You
bunny,
fake
you play your
laughing at
card.
me or Andrew.
Both.
Yeah, because it's the same joke. But you get these different buildings that you can place on the locations as you draw cards. So like I said, there's the territory cards. Then there's like mission cards that you can go on to get the most of X, and you get this many bonus golden carrots for doing that or whatever. And there's an interesting mechanic I'll get to in a second. But one of the things you get are these buildings, and there's strongholds essentially, and they give you strength. So here's one building. It's got one. It's worth 1 strength. It's going to be so hard for it to focus. Oh, that worked pretty well. Where it's got this carrot as a tower.
Yeah.
And then it's like a little fortress with a couple of very simplistic. It's like 1. Then you can upgrade, and then there's a 2-person or a 2 strength tower, which has the 2 carrots.
And do those connect?
No, they don't connect. And then these all fit in 1 square. And then here's like the big daddy. It's 3. So as you see, it's really cool. It's going to be hard for you guys to see it, but on the video itself,
Sure.
Like the detail in there's actual little brick detail and everything. But here's what's cool about it. So you've got your bunnies, but there's a spot in the top. The bunny just slides right down inside of there.
That's where he lives now.
So he takes over the location, and he's got that spot. So there's a lot of rules to this game. It's not very complicated, but there are a lot of rules to kind of understanding how
like
the flow
Dice
of it
Forge.
works. Kind of, but even more, I think. But here's the interesting mechanic about it. You have 2 decks in front of you. You have a draw deck and you have a play deck. Each one consists of 10 cards, unless you have more than 2 players. I think it's 2 to 4 players is the play. But you have your play cards, and then you take 2 of them, and you set them aside to play, and then you pass the deck to the person to your right.
Oh, cool.
They pass you their deck, and then you have now 8 cards to choose from.
Yeah.
They have your 8 cards. So you have to both play in advance, knowing, like, set up things in such a way where you can play them a couple turns ahead, but at the same time realize that if you're looking at a handful of 10 cards and 6 of them are the ones that you want, you might not have a chance to actually play all 6 of them, because you're going to take 2, hand the deck to that other person. They're going to have a chance to take 2 of those cards.
Right.
So it's a really interesting gameplay. And when you're playing with 2 players, there's another added component to it where you're actually discarding one of the cards from there. As well. So you're playing some, but then you're also discarding. If you're watching how the other person's trying to play, you can kind of sandbag their strategy a little bit. There's a lot of rules. That being said, don't be afraid to pick it up. The barrier of entry is not like so bad, but there is just a little bit more than would be worth explaining right now in the context of reviewing the game. Totally worth it. The art is amazing, as per the usual. If I'm telling you about a game, it's because I'm endorsing it, and the artwork is always going to be a part of that for me. gameplay is fun. There's a lot of strategy to it. We played 2 of us in about 30 minutes. It says it's about a 45 to an hour play time. So I'm guessing if you've got 3 or 4 players, that's probably what it would be. But man, I guess I could have shown you some of what these cards look like. So here's one of the cards that gives you like a mission to go on. It's like a Braveheart rabbit. Here's one of the territory cards.
Nice.
So as you see, it shows you the grid location like H2, and this particular one produces. Oh, I didn't tell you one of the whole major mechanics of the game. Some of the locations produce have different. They produce. Oh my gosh, what's the word? Things. Resources. Thank you. I'm like, why can't I think of the word? So they produce resources, and you can some of the cards you pull will help you produce like luxury resources. And so you build what they call fiefs, and a fief is one location territory. As you connect locations together, your fief increases, and so you get points, and they multiply based on how many strengths or strongholds you have in that fief, and how many different kinds of resources that fief is producing. So, nice. As you start, I think there's like 9 rounds or 5 rounds or something like that. As you start, your fiefs won't produce very much, but as you go, your fiefs start to connect, and you end up having a fief with like 10 different territories connected to it, and you've got 4 different strongholds, so that's 4 times maybe 5 different kinds of resources, and so nice. That's a fief that's worth 20.
Oh, cool! That sounds
victory
fun.
points. So, the game plays in various rounds and phases of each round. Anyway. It sounds kind of complicated. It's super not. It's just involved, and you have to kind of pay attention. But the strategy of it is very, very fun. The artwork is very, very fun. If you've got teenagers or like kind of advanced game playing, like adolescents, like maybe 12-year-old. I think the base says it's 14. But if you've got like a 12-year-old who's into playing games, they could probably pick it up pretty easily. But it's a ton of fun. Pick it up, Bunny Kingdom. It was kind of hard to find. I had to search for a long time to find it in my local game store. I mean, I guess if you wanted to buy it on Amazon. What?
How'd you hear about it?
I think it was like recommended to me on Board Game Geek or something like that. Like gotcha. I don't remember exactly how I found it, but man, it's a blast. Go pick it up and play it. All right, Patrick, take us home.
All right, so, and we're a little bit removed from it, but so we always record 1 week off. So this might feel a little bit distant, everybody. I apologize.
We're with
but
you,
it is
man.
Decently relevant now, which is the Super Bowl. This is the...
go Patriots.
Yeah, nope. That didn't quite pan out. So, by the way, I did watch the game. It was actually...
it was a good game. It was a good game.
I'm convinced that all of these, like, I'm thinking like the Super Bowl and World Series and
championship games.
They're just rigged. They're all rigged. They're all fake.
Okay.
Why is everything going to a game 7 and you're down 3 and you win 4 more, or everything's going to the last 5 seconds? Sure. You'll see a team like have a perfect season and like stomp on everybody and get to the final game, and all of a sudden like it's all rigged. Okay, professional sports are bogus. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about advertising.
But it was a good game though. And the Eagles won.
It was a great game. It's interesting to see a team at that caliber miss a field goal and 2 extra point attempts.
Yeah.
But it was a great game.
Yeah.
So advertising. I am not sure. So I always have this debate in my life. You watch a movie like Anchorman, and then you see Anchorman 2, and you have to ask yourself, is Anchorman less funny, or did I grow up? You go and you watch. I was going to use another movie example, but that's not important right now. Super Bowl commercials.
Like you watch Spider-Man, and then you see Spider-Man 2, and you're like, man, I'm just getting old. And then you watch Spider-Man 3, and then you're like, man. And then you watch Spider-Man Homecoming, and you're like, oh, I got younger. This is good again.
Yeah.
Like that.
So
I struggle with that all the time.
Yeah. So when I see something like Super Bowl, I mean, I remember like it was this. They were funny and unique and mostly other words similar to funny, and I loved Super Bowl commercials.
Unexpected.
And it seems like and hilarious and fun. And then like this year I was so let down and I'm left with, do they suck or do I suck? Like what's progressing over time?
Well, you suck.
Okay. Well, that was direct and it felt real. So I don't. So
I don't even think Luke knew that we were recording.
Sorry, what was your question?
Yeah, we're in an episode right now. So coming out of the game, I just don't know that I feel like there were very many big winners. Now that there were two campaigns specifically that I think did do something that I would say is Super Bowl worthy from an ad campaign, and those two campaigns were actually Netflix with their treatment of the Cloverfield Project. No, Paradox, not Project, Paradox.
Okay.
Their treatment of that, and then also the Tide's ad spots, especially given what Tide had to overcome with all the negative press for the Tide Pod Challenge earlier,
Sure.
Not even really earlier, that's still going on now. There are two spots that I think did live up to the promise of the Super Bowl. So I want to dive into those quickly and talk about what they did well that made them really stand apart from what is I technically called their competition. So first with the Cloverfield Paradox. So have either of you seen the movie yet?
Nope.
No.
Okay. So won't talk too much about the film. I like the tone, like the music, like the setting. It feels a bit disjointed and random. Watch it. There's no reason not to watch it. You're already paying $9 a month for it. Watch it. And I think it is something that there's some pretty cool fan theories out there of, if these one or two things happen, how it could really kind of like fill in a lot of these missing pieces and turn it into something really substantial. Go ahead and watch it now. We'll see how that unfolds over time, but it's still a fun universe, even if the film doesn't live up to its predecessors. So worth the watch. That's all about the film.
It's the third installment, yeah.
It is. So we've had
I
Cloverfield.
haven't seen 10 Cloverfield Lane.
Oh, that's
10 Cloverfield
great.
Lane is for
It's
that
great.
genre, it's a masterpiece of a film.
It's great.
Great. And there's
I
some
can't believe
really.
I haven't seen it.
I think there's like 5 film premises now. Like there's one that's like the next one is going to be set during like World War I or something, and then there's rumors that like a current Bad Robot project that's being worked on is actually the 5th installment in the Cloverfield universe, and all that to the side. We'll talk about that another time. So what made Cloverfield special? What did Netflix do that was groundbreaking? And the answer is they took a type of media. We're talking about a film, a feature-length film, something that other studios are spending months and months pouring into advertising, getting it in front of people. You have a teaser that leads to a teaser, that leads to a trailer, that leads to a film, and this all unfolds over 6 months. Or in the case of this specific Super Bowl, you have the This Is Us episode that is coming out after the game, but you have 6 weeks of advertising that's trying to build up the hype for it. Netflix came out in the middle of all these other things that were being promised. They dropped something that may have been rumored, but people didn't know what was fully there. And not only did they do that, they made it available immediately. So you watch the show and you get a promise for something like Solo, but you have to wait another, 4 months or whatever it is. And Netflix says, forget that. Here's our thing. And yes, we're dropping the trailer for the first time, but you can go watch it now. As soon as you're done with the game, flip it on.
And it said, because there were 2 ads for it. The first ad unfolded that it was a thing, and at the end it said coming very soon. That's what it said.
Yeah.
And we were like, what does that mean? Is it like next month, next week? Like, what's going on? And then as soon as the game ended, they showed the second one, and it said streaming now on Netflix. Like, what?
Yeah. And so, and additionally, what they also did is they removed the review process from it. They removed the critic process. They removed the positive and negative hype, and they capitalized on straight hype with basically the smallest advertising budget that you could have. Sans the fact that they obviously bought a Super Bowl spot.
It was $1 million for a Super Bowl ad.
Right. But literally one ad. So when you talk about the potential that they stand to gain by removing all of the positive and negative hype and just getting to the point, capitalizing on the excitement of the game and all these new things to take someone and immediately engage them and kind of convert them to a watch, really kind of MVP scenario for the way the advertising was treated. So very interested to see what that translates to. Netflix isn't really going to share actual numbers. I think it's pretty well known that they're kind of like Chick-fil-A in that regard.
They don't do that.
Huh?
They don't do that.
They don't do that, but we'll get hints of it. So when they do their big shareholder meetings and things like that, they will talk about how the quarter went. They will hint to things that happen. So we may get a tease of maybe what the outcome was, positive or negative, even if we don't get exact numbers. But I think it was amazing. The other thing it did is NBC had been really setting up after the game, Watch This Is Us. And it immediately added a competitor of, yes, you can watch this show, or you can be the first person, one of the first people to watch this new film that just got surprise dropped tonight and be a part of this kind of cultural excitement that's happening. And so certainly not everyone leaves the show, walks away from This Is Us to watch Cloverfield. Some people did.
Sure.
Some people, it stole thunder. It stole some viewers from NBC as well. And so
some might say it stole some of the fire.
I did actually end up watching This Is Us. But the which is funny because I haven't watched a single other episode. But there's a guy
because advertising works on you. That's what it is.
Yep.
No, when everybody else in the room specifically sets out to watch that, you just watch it with them. So
peer pressure works on you. That's the same thing as advertising. That's like a daily advertising.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's what Netflix did. That's what makes Netflix unique. I think it's going to pay off big for them. I think it was a smart move. And it'll be interesting to see moving forward. Do we see, are there other events like this taking place? Are there other studios that try something similar, or whether it's other streaming platforms, whatever? But a very cool thing to do. Now, the other person I think is a big winner, and I'll spend a little bit less time on this because I'm including a great link below that goes into more detail, but the Tide ads. Now, I actually think this story, so the ads were certainly funny. This idea of everything you're seeing for the next, couple of hours, you get to start guessing, is this a Tide ad or is this an actual ad? I mean, in that, they really kind of took over a lot of people's spots just by causing you to start questioning everything you're seeing and guessing about everything what you're seeing. So Saatchi & Saatchi is the company behind that. Hearts and Science is the company behind their digital strategy. But all of that is really great. The thing that I find fascinating, I'm including an Adweek article that goes into basically their war room during the game. And they actually have, so Saatchi & Saatchi is their creative agency, Hearts and Science is their digital agency, they have their team. They actually have all of those teams in the room together, sitting at their own tables, working during the entire game, monitoring analytics, how people are acting. They had a group of 4 people whose entire job was to find Tide Pod Challenge hashtags and flag the tweets. They had $170,000 of Twitter ad spend. So they had 2 reps from Twitter in the room helping them, manage their ad spend and letting them know how people are responding to it. The whole thing is fascinating. So if you're not... So I have a foot in that world with my normal job.
Sure.
And so whereas the numbers might be much larger, so the scale is much larger, these are all things that I'm aware of that happen. But for some of you that are listening, I imagine a lot of this stuff is potentially sounding surprising, or $170,000 just for ad spend for a couple of hours or something like that. That's on one platform, by the way. This might be very surprising. So what I would say, when you're done listening to the show, go read this article. It's a very good article. It really breaks down their approach. It breaks down how they monitored it. It breaks down how they balanced having predefined, like setting a plan and following it, but also tempering that with being human in the moment and being able to pivot. And it's very cool to see that happening even at something that is such a huge scale. So I think Tide was a big winner just from, again, posturing themselves to, putting them, making you question everything that you're seeing it and filtering it through the lens of their brand, which is just awesome. So that's why they're a big winner from that side. But also being able to look at the behind the scenes of how they were managing that and how they were really creating this moment that ended up being a viral moment. Very, very interesting. And a really quick stat that I want to leave you with on this topic, and then we'll just leave this episode, is I believe it was one of the people from Hearts and Science made the comment that the work they do it's basically 90% planning and 10% luck. And this is what I want you to understand from that. It is not 90% luck and 10% planning. It isn't, I'll do my best and maybe some people will attach to it. It is 90% planning. The idea is that you can craft and create these moments that feel like organic, whatever moments, but it is possible to completely just craft those. And it's happening around you much more than you realize. It's something, it feels like you're part of something organic and culturally significant and whatever, and it's just a really smart group of 5 people.
And it's Disney.
Yeah. So the point is, read the article, start dipping your feet in that area, and read about the work some of these people do at this very high level. I think it's fascinating. So those are my big takeaways from the Super Bowl. Beyond that, it's rigged. It sucked. But otherwise, I loved it. So
great game.
Okay.
There you go.
You're a big Patriots fan. I can tell by the jerseys you never stop wearing. That's it for this episode.
One of the people at my house was wearing a Bengals jersey.
Find us on
Bengals.
I'm just going to push through.
No Bengals.
You can find us on mof1podcast.com where you can find show notes and links to all the stuff we just talked about. If you're on YouTube, just look below us in the video box. I guess I just did this, but I'm one small box inside of a bigger box.
We all do it.
Yeah.
Just down there.
Just look down. Like, share, post, follow. What is poke? Is that still a thing?
Ugh, no.
Can you still do that on social media?
Cool.
But on all the different
it.
platforms, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify, YouTube, just everywhere, share, like, subscribe, comment. That helps us out so much. It takes very little time, but helps us out very, very much. Rate and review the show as well on all the different platforms that allow you to do that. It just helps us. If you want to help on a financial level, go to patreon.com/MF1podcast. You can support the show on there. There's some benefits to doing that. You can find all the information there. It helps us out. We have great plans for 2018. You can help us help those things come to fruition by doing that. What else is there? There's other things, right? We're going to be at Creative South. We have a workshop that's at Creative South. Go to creativesouth.com to find out more about that.
Share the name of it? Do we want to share the name of it?
Yeah, it's Podcasting with Dummies.
Yep.
And it's going to be a good time. Join us there. Crop. I was going to say pop-up crop, but we're going to be at Crop as well. And our guest this week is actually hosting Crop, and so to get a little sneak peek of what that looks like, listen to this Thursday's episode. But there's so much stuff going on. Go to mof1podcast.com and you can find a map. Follow us on social media. You can see where we're going to be. The reality is we're all over the place. Talk to us. If you want to be part of the community, go to mof1podcast.com/Slack and join the conversation in there. There's over 200 people day in and day out conversing and talking. Sharing ideas, giving encouragement, all of the good things.
Yeah.
But for now, we're going to get out of this episode. I'm Andrew.
I'm Patrick.
And I'm Luke.
Peace out.
Bye.
Hold on to your butts.